Hey guys, Argent Templar here with the Game of Thrones character profile of Roose Bolton. Problem with Roose Bolton is, with the series completely stalled as it is, we don't really know too much about him. What are his goals? What are his plans? What are his motivations? I don't really know. Um, I will say this, he always seems to me to be more than just a cartoon villain. I mean, Tywin Lannister was more than just a cartoon villain, but he had very much the if you were to show someone the TV show and they hadn't read the books, they'd probably immediately say, "Oh, Tywin Lannister is the big bad. Tywin Lannister is like the main villain," and they'd probably be extremely shocked when he dies. Um, Roose Bolton doesn't really strike me as that. A lot of people think he's a vampire. Some people think he's a White Walker. Some people think he's descendant of the Night King. I don't know. All I know is there's more to him than meets the eye. He's I'm not sure what it is. I actually, interestingly, kind of have a perspective that there's I don't know if you call it a bit of good in him or a bit of redeemable features in him. And I almost kind of, and this is going to sound really strange, I almost kind of see his betrayal of Robb Stark as like a tragic hero move that he felt he had to make, but that he knew would lead him and his house on the course to ruin. Because say what you will about Roose Bolton, but he is of the North. He keeps the Northern gods. He's a Northerner. His family have been living there forever. There is no doubt that the Boltons are the North, and that they love the North, and that they keep the North's customs, even if it's in their own twisted way. So to some extent, I've always kind of fantasized, I know there's not a lot of canon to support this, that part of the reason Roose Bolton betrayed Robb Stark was to prevent a Southern from ruling the North. Because by betraying him, he was named Warden of the North. Ramsay got Winterfell, and he became the de facto Lord Paramount of the North. So, in a sense, by double-crossing Robb Stark, he saved the North from being run by foreigners with a different religion, a different culture. The Boltons are widely considered to be one of the strongest families in the North and one of the most ancient and noble. The Manderleys are probably stronger, but the Manderleys keep the Seven and are considered outsiders despite being there for 1,000 years. So that's all very kind of interesting to keep in mind, that had he not betrayed Robb Stark, things might have gone very differently, and there could have been a Southern army with a Southern Lord Paramount occupying the North. Actually, that was Tywin's ultimate plan, was for Sansa and Tyrion's son to rule from Winterfell and basically place the North once and for all under Southern command. So, in a sense, he kind of saved the North. As for betraying Robb Stark, by the time he betrayed him, the war was basically over anyways. I don't think the Red Wedding really changed anything. With the defeat of Stannis at the Blackwater, and with the death of Renly and the Tyrells going over to the Lannisters, there was no circumstance under which Robb Stark could win. Even if he won every battle for the rest of the war with minimal casualties, his manpower reserves would have rapidly depleted themselves, and the best he could have possibly hoped for was abandoning the River Lords and pulling back across the neck, and hopefully just maintaining sovereignty that way. Perhaps there would have been an expensive southern naval adventure, but it would have just led to decades of the North being economically isolated and without any real peace possible. There would have been no formal peace process. Even if the North could have held on to its sovereignty, they still had to deal with the Ironborn and the failure to harvest enough grain for the winter, in which case there would have not been a southern kingdom to subsidize them during the winter. So it's very tricky to really pass that much judgment. Roose Bolton's a traitor, don't get me wrong, but his betrayal of Robb Stark did not lose the war. The war was lost any number of times before the decision was made. If you look at it from a certain way and assuming certain things, it can almost be seen that Roose Bolton betrayed Robb Stark, who was on his way down, to preserve the North as an independent entity. And in doing this, he realized that his house would be destroyed and would be torn apart, but he was willing to do it anyways, for the good of his nation, more or less. Now, that's all just speculation and fantasy, and there's very little in canon to back it up. But I always kind of thought that was a more interesting motive than just him being a mustache-twirling villain. Because he doesn't come across as one. He comes across as being too smart. And he doesn't really come across as a man who wants power for its own sake. He seems like a man who does things for ruthlessly efficient reasons. And he does seem to some extent to himself personally to have some sort of code. And to him, I think Robb Stark violated some aspect of his code of honor, and that was the reason he betrayed him. So Roose Bolton, while being very opaque and very difficult to see, I think he does have a very specific code. I think it's very twisted and strange, but I think he does have one. And I'm not convinced that he's a complete monster in the same way his son is. He's very cold, at least, where his son's very hot. And he's more willing to be reasoned and rational in his response to things. So that's my thoughts on the character. Argent Templar signing out.